Okay, let's move on to Module 9, Task Type Settings. So working with the different task types is often an area of confusion for a lot of users of Microsoft Project because of the way it schedules assignments and reschedules the amount of work or duration associated to a particular resource. So this particular module is going to cover that to help explain and give you a better understanding of what's going on with Microsoft Project. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this module is going to cover. We'll be using the Module 9 file. So the first thing we want to talk through is this what's known as the scheduling method, right? The method by which a project is scheduled, such as effort-driven scheduling. Right, and the notion of effort-driven scheduling, as you can see here in the task type settings area, right, is essentially how your project is either going to be extended or shortened from a duration perspective as you load up or assign additional resources. Okay, and the way you have set your task types is going to be important. So what we're going to look at as we work through these exercises is that you are going to have the option to fix one of the three variables. Now those three variables are units, work, and duration. The default in Microsoft Project is fixed units effort-driven scheduling. Okay, is the way it's set up. Now you can change that to any default you would like, but that's the way it's set up initially. So that effort-driven scheduling is turned on and the task type setting is fixed units. So as we go through the exercises, keep that in mind, but understand that you can change those. Now, as a best practice, when you are ready to do an actual assignment, what you have set up is going to be important from a task type perspective as to which of the three variables that you're going to fix. One of the ways you can think of it is if you know the value of those three variables. In other words, if you know work, if you know what the effort is for a particular task, it's considered a best practice to fix that variable. So if you know it's going to take 24 hours of effort to complete a task, then you can use fixed work as the setting for that particular task. If you know a task is going to take a certain duration, 1 week, 2 days, what have you, then go ahead and fix that duration, okay, so that it will not change. That is the variable that will not be affected, and that's good best practice moving forward. So we're going to look at that, and we're going to look at the different ways in which Project reacts when we load and unload resources onto tasks. So of course you're going to want to make sure you have your file open. The very first thing we're going to do is understanding the notion of an initial assignment. So you have to understand that when you first load up a task with resources, it is different than when you load a resource with task and then assign additional resources after the fact. So this whole notion of initial assignment is going to be important to you. Okay, so if you have one resource, you assign them to the task, and then you come right back and assign an additional resource, it's going to have a different effect than if you had assigned them both initially. Okay, and we're going to walk through that. So we want to understand this notion of initial assignment by walking through these different scenarios. In this first case, we're going to do it with a single resource, and then we're going to do it with two resources. So you can see the effect, and in this case you can see that the total when we put 2 on was 80 hours, and it was a 5-day duration, and we'll see that effect as we go through the exercises. Scenario 3 here, the secondary assignment, is that we have Kim Rawls here initially assigned, right, at 40 hours, but then we come right back and we say, well, we need to put Rob Young on there. Well, when we put Rob Young on that same task, it actually reduces the duration. Okay, it reduces the duration. So what it's doing is it's splitting those hours in half. It's saying, well, let me give half to Kim and the other half to Rob Young as a secondary assignment. Okay, so this is what's known as effort-driven scheduling. And the key to that is that this task, the task type settings, was at fixed units. So the units needed to stay at 100% for both Kim and for Rob. So when you brought Rob in secondarily on that assignment, then the duration was affected. The duration was reduced to 2.5 days. Okay, and we'll go ahead and walk through that. We'll be placing a resource on there, then doing an undo to see the effect, then placing another one, seeing the undo and see the effect of it so that we can walk through and understand that. Okay, and we'll do that for a couple different exercises. And then we're going to look at this table to help you to understand then what is going to occur if you revise these different values. Okay, and I'll give you an opportunity to look through this, and this paragraph and this table should help you to understand what is going to be recalculated when you have the different variables fixed. So as you can see here, in a fixed units task, if you revise units, the duration is recalculated. If you revise duration, work is recalculated. If you revise work, then duration is recalculated. So this is a good table for you to work with as you start to do assignments, do secondary assignments, and start to actually change the values in these different tasks. With that table plus the best practice that I was mentioning before, should allow you to work with your tasks much easier and understand how Project is using the different calculations to come up with the different values. Okay. So what we'll also do is we'll modify a fixed units task. Okay. We'll go into actually making those changes here, looking at the effort-driven area. We'll also modify a fixed duration task. Okay, so we want to change these different task types so you can actually see their effect. Okay, and we'll do the same thing. We'll perform the initial assignment, then secondary assignments. Then we'll see some examples of this whole notion of effort-driven scheduling, which you're already getting a sense of. Then we'll modify the fixed work task. Set the work estimate. Perform the secondary assignment and see the effect of that. And then we'll finish up with the recap. Okay, you should have the Module 9 file open and also saved as a different file name on your desktop or in a designated area. The very first thing we're going to do as we walk through the steps is change the view. Change the view. So let's go up to View, and notice that there's a More Views area under the View, and let's change this to Task Entry. So find Task Entry and hit Apply there. Now this is also what's considered to be a split view, where you're actually looking at two views at the same time. The nice thing about this particular view is that when you click on a task in the upper pane here, in this case the Gantt chart, it changes to the details down below. So this is a very good view to be aware of, because when you're doing assignments, this is a very common way in which you're going to want to work with it, because it's going to show you the task, and then it's going to show you details about the task. And in this case, since we're talking about task types and effort-driven scheduling, this is where you're going to want to be. Okay, so let's talk through and get an understanding of this whole notion of initial assignments. So as you look through this section, the very first thing we're going to do in this scenario 1 is around a single resource and assigning just a single resource to a task that's 5 days. In this case, conduct needs analysis, which is 5 days. So as you notice here, here's the conduct needs analysis, task number 8, which is 5 days. What's basically telling us is that when we assign the resource to the task, we've estimated the duration, but work is not yet is not yet calculated. So if you notice that when I click on Conduct Needs Analysis and we come down here, there's not a resource assigned to this task yet. Therefore, work has not been calculated, right? Because it's telling us that the duration multiplied by the units is what's going to give us work. So in this case, when we assign Kim Rawls to this task, it's taking the duration, which is 5 days, multiplied by the 100% of the resource to give us the total work. So if we assigned Kim Rawls at a lower percentage from the perspective of units, it would give us less work, but the duration would still stay at 5 days. Okay? And you always have that option, of course, right? You always have that option. In the second scenario, when we have a task like Conduct Needs Analysis, and we're assigning both Kim Rawls and Rob Young simultaneously, right? The very first time we assign, then it's going to do that same calculation. It's going to say duration times units is what's going to give us the amount of work. So it's going to take the 5 days, multiply it by the units in Kim Rawls, and multiply it by Rob Young, each taking up 40 hours to give us a total work of 80 hours, even though only 5 days are going to elapse, because both Kim and Rob are working full time against that particular task. Okay? In the third scenario, we have, again, that same task, Conduct Needs Analysis, for 5 days, with Kim Rawls assigned at 40 hours, but this is now a secondary assignment. Okay, so after we've done the initial assignment with Kim Rawls, we come back and we decide we're going to put Rob Young on that task for whatever reason. Well, Project is going to take that task and say, well, because it's effort driven and you fix the units, one of the 3 variables has got to give. Okay? One of the 3 variables has got to give. Because you have it at fixed units, it's going to want to keep your units at 100%. So therefore the duration is going to have to be reduced because it's a secondary assignment. It's a secondary assignment. Project is looking at it and saying, well, you're putting this additional resource on this task for a reason. You want something to give here, in this case duration. That means that you brought in Rob Young to help with conducting the needs analysis because you needed it to finish earlier, right? Why else would you have Rob Young and associate Rob Young onto that? Okay, it's after the fact. It's after your initial assignment. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's perform the initial assignment. Okay, so you're going to click on task number 8 here. You're going to go down to the resource name. You're going to assign Kim Rawls, and we're going to do a couple undos here, so stay with me. So hit Kim Rawls and then simply click OK. This OK right here. And notice what it does. Just as I said, it calculates it and it gives us the 40 hours. Okay. Now do an undo. Undo that last step. Then again, make sure you're on conducting the needs analysis. But this time what you're going to do is you're going to assign both Kim and Rob at the same time. So with conducting the needs analysis selected, click on the resource name, click on Kim Rawls. Don't click OK yet. Click underneath Kim Rawls and choose Rob Young. Okay, so what you're basically doing here is just saying both Kim and Rob are going to be working on this task at the same time. Okay, and this is your initial assignment. That undo brought us back. Okay, it brought us back to being an initial assignment, and then click OK. And notice what it does. It's 40 hours for Rob and 40 hours for Kim. The duration stays at 5 days, but the work, the total work for this is now 80 hours. Okay? And then do an undo here. And it removes them both. Okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the initial assignment and then the secondary assignment. Okay, so go right back. It's going to seem a little tedious, but let's keep doing it so that we get this straight. So click on Conduct Needs Analysis. Go down, click in your resource name. Choose Kim Rawls again. Click OK. There's your initial assignment. Okay. Now you're going to do a secondary assignment. So with Conduct Needs Analysis still selected, click underneath Kim Rawls. Okay. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go find Rob Young. This is the secondary assignment, and keep an eye on these different variables, right? Keep an eye on the units, keep an eye on the work, keep an eye on the duration as we click OK. And notice what it does. It was fixed units effort driven, so the units remain fixed, but the duration reduced to 2.5 days, and the work was also reduced. Because the work is only going to be conducted over a 2.5 day period, right? So just do the math there. 8 hours plus 4 hours, okay, is giving us the 20 hours for each resource over 2.5 days. Okay, because our units were fixed. Okay, and that was a secondary assignment. And notice, of course, it affected the schedule. Okay, and that leads us to looking at that table, which you can take a look at. I encourage you as you go through the labs to practice, right, in these different scenarios to see what the result is with each of these. Okay, now let's move on to talking about working with the fixed units. So we're going to look at just a couple more tasks here. Let's go to Draft Preliminary Software, which is task number 9. So we're in the Work with the Fixed Units task step here as part of this module 9. And you're going to go ahead and double click on that task. Brings up the task information dialog box, and click on the Advanced tab. And notice that here it is showing you the fixed units effort driven. This is the default setting in Microsoft Project, and like I said, you can change that, but this is another area in which you can see that. And then click Cancel. Okay. Now let's go ahead and change some things. Let's move on to working with modifying a fixed duration task. Okay. So you want to make sure that you're in the upper pane here. Okay. And go to task number 9. It's asking us here to use the F5 key to get there, but you can just simply go find it. Task number 9. Okay. And now looking at the lower pane, you're going to change the task type. So task number 9 selected, go to task type, change it to fixed duration, and notice that when you change the task type, the two buttons over here also change, because it's telling us that you want to register that task type. So let's go ahead and do that. And we register the task type as being fixed duration. Okay. Then let's go ahead and go back and let's do the initial assignment and secondary assignments again. Okay. So with this task selected, right, Draft to Preliminary Software is selected. Click underneath the resource name area, choose Kim Rawls, choose your resource, right, click OK. You perform the initial assignment. Now let's perform the secondary assignment. So click underneath Kim Rawls, and remember what happened last time when we were in fixed units effort driven. Okay, remember what happened to duration. Now I'm going to choose Rob Young and click OK. And the units have now been reduced, right? Earlier when we had fixed units effort driven, the unit stayed the same and the duration was affected. But this time we fixed the duration. We clicked OK, and then we did our initial, then our secondary, and the duration stayed constant, right? That was the variable that we had fixed, and we wanted it. So as we add more resources, duration is going to stay at 3 days, and our units are going to continue to go down as we add more resources. Okay, very important to know that, because as you work through your schedule, there are going to be certain instances where you're going to say, hey, I want this particular value to stay constant. I want it to stay right there, and now you know how you can go in and fix that. Okay. Okay, let's move on to talking about fixed work. So let's go to task number 10 here. Move on to the next task. And this time let's change the task type to being fixed work. So click on fixed work. Okay. And click OK. Make sure you register that. And notice that the note in your manual as you're going through that, because you may be wondering, well, why is effort driven staying checked here? Okay. Fixed work tasks do not have flexible work values and are therefore always effort driven. Okay, they do not have flexible work values. Okay, so we cannot remove the notion of effort driven from fixed work. Okay, so make sure you've go ahead and set that fixed work and clicked OK. Now the next thing it's asking us to do is let's add the work column. Okay, so move your split bar over, just drag it over. Okay, and you're going to right click on the duration column and you're looking for insert column. Scroll down until you find work, or you can hit W on your keyboard and that'll bring you down to the W's and you can click work there, click OK, and it brings out the work column. Okay, so now we can start seeing work as we start to work with our different tasks. Okay, now let's set the work estimate. Okay, we brought that work column out so that we could set it right even after we set up our fixed work. So you want to make sure that you're in the draft, or rather develop preliminary budget task. Okay, and click in the work column there and type in 10. I'm sorry, type in 16 and then hit enter. Okay, so we first set the task type, clicked OK, then we went to the task, put in the value for work, in this case 16, right, and hit enter, made sure that was set. Now with task 10 selected, go into the resource name and choose your Kim Rawls. And click OK. Alright, and remember the work that we fixed, right? We fixed our work here. Okay, now let's perform the secondary assignment. Okay, so with that same task selected, go down, choose Rob Young. Okay, keep in mind all the different variables here. Click OK. Right, and we have it fixed work, so the work is certainly fixed, but notice how Kim Rawls and Rob Young, right, are at 8 and 8, and the duration, right, is now being affected. So it's still 16 hours, but the duration is now taken down to 1 day.